So yeah, maybe Robins, you could kick off here by giving, a kind of a top level, sort of top line view on what happened in 2021 to drive this increase in production globally, and then why you think that that's going to continue in 2022.
I think if we look at this chart going at 2013, that was the low point of EMS and those diseases that hit in that 2012, 2013, 24 range. And we're still catching up in production towards world consumption. We've also seen very strong consumption patterns due to the popularity of seafood in the last few years, and that trend will continue. So between the catch-up that we've been doing and that increased trend toward consumption, much of it not price sensitive, is really driving a very healthy increase in shrimp production in the last 2 years. And again, I think we will see this going forward to 2022 as well, given a few other considerations that we can talk about later. The other trend is America and Asia. So those are the two major shrimp growing areas for export. And Asia used to have a real dominant position, 76% of the world in 2011. But it's dropped down to about 66%. Well, on the other hand, the Americas have increased 10% of the world production. And I think that trend will also continue to see more shrimp produced in the Americas. Asia will continue to grow, but probably at a lower rate than we see in the Americas.
Okay, we'll move to the next slide where we're going into a bit more detail here on the numbers, and obviously the big headline here is the growth in Ecuador. I just wanted to get a bit of a commentary and insight from you on what's been the driver this year. Obviously you're envisaging further growth in 2022, and do you think that can be continued in Ecuador beyond 2022?
Yeah, so I think for Ecuador, they are the country that won the 1 million ton award, first country to reach 1 million tons. And they've been putting on very healthy gains for the last 3 or 4 years, from 850 to over 1 million tons this year. And you can expect another 150,000 tons next year. And this is through intensification. It's not Asian intensification. It's South American intensification, meaning they've gone from 6-8 per square meter to maybe 15 per square meter. Their stocks are performing better. So they're getting more crops in, maybe 3.5 crops a year versus 2 crops or even 1 crop if you go back 10 years ago. Going into 22, I think we'll continue to see this trend. Now, the one reason that Ecuador has really outperformed in Central America and the rest are kind of stagnant, they don't move like Ecuador. Ecuador is still the country with the resource, the large ponds paid for, all infrastructure in, and they really have upped their game technically. They've got new feed mills, higher technology in feeds. Their animals are improving. Their technologists are improving. In the early days, Ecuador was kind of founded by what I call the expatriate cowboys. And now they're local and they're becoming very technically adept. And so Ecuador has done a real good job of upping their game. And so I see this continuing. Now, when you get past maybe 20, 25 per square meter, you get into densities used by other countries in America. There's more stress in those ponds than you would find in an Ecuadorian pond. And it's that stress that brings out disease, which Ecuador has been blessed not to have a lot of. So, how much more density they can add on before they hit that line where they go from extensive to semi-intensive to intensive, where you run into the more disease problems like we'll have in countries that tend to intensify more than, say, 18 or 20 per square meter. But I really looking at the model and the increased technology and the capability of Ecuador and the money they're putting into processing and increasing their product range, they're really doing it all right. I mean, they've got the world's best shrimp. That's a fantastic platform to work from. They work together. Ecuador has really put it together, and I think they showcase what shrimp farming can be. it would not surprise me if they can get close to 2 million tons.
In how long do you think it could potentially take them to hit that, though?
Well, do your trend line out at 150,000 tons a year.
Right, yeah, true. And I think what's been interesting to see is when we did the webinar way back, which you were on, when it looked a bit more precarious for Ecuador with the Chinese market, you know, and their efforts to switch towards the US and Europe and having to invest in more labor-intensive, you know, processing. But the industry's really kind of pivoted and balanced out very impressively, hasn't it? It's kind of like
they have. I mean, Ecuador is to be really congratulated on the efficiency of which they've worked and which they have addressed problems in marketing and other areas as well. I mean, they really have a lot to be congratulated for. I remember when I first, you know, talked to Ecuadorian marketers back in the early 2000s, 2001, 2002, they had suffered some issues. And at that point, you know, they had a program that said, we want to do 30, 30, 30, 30 Asia, 30 America, 30 Europe, because it's balanced. And that really worked well for them. But then when the Chinese market came along and was an easy market and basically was easy to sell into, and they offered great prices, and it was heads on, and it was bulk, and it, you know, didn't require a lot of processing. So as they increased production, they really didn't have to do much in processing. They sell it to China. They really slanted away from the 30-30 model. But today, it looks like they're going back to a 30-30-30 model. And it's really an excellent model for them to follow. And they've got the product to do it, and they're creating the product for them. So instead of just going to bulk shipping to China, they're basically going into retail packs. They're going into packs that can be distributed through other channels successfully.
Yeah, and I'll just go back to sharing my screen again, back to the presentation, to touch upon a couple of interesting stories in Asia from these numbers. We've got, India, you're forecasting India to grow somewhat this year, but then to basically flatline at around 700,000 tons. I just wonder whether you could, shed a bit of light on.
Flatline is basically a cop-out. I don't know which way India is going to go. Again, as I said, I generally follow trend lines, and I look at the strength of the trend, and the trend in India is broken. So it's hard to say. It's at a pivot point. So it could start to accelerate again, or it could drift down some. We know that we've got increasing disease issues in Andhra Pradesh. We know that we've had more weather-related losses in Gujarat, Bengal from typhoons. And so it's really hard to guess which way India is going to go. So I flatline it, but it could move up and it could move down.
Right.
It's just a very difficult country at this point to project it with any confidence.